Welcome for Alfresco Tech Talk Live 170 already. It's, I would say, the last Tech Talk Live before our traditional August break. There is no Tech Talk Live in August usually because we don't have that much attendance in August. Next Tech Talk Live will be in English. Next Tech Talk Live in English will be in September. But this is a special trick, and I will come back later. Santiago will actually also do a Tech Talk Live later this summer in August, but not in English, but in Spanish. But I will explain the detail later in this short presentation. Today, community news as usual. Santiago will present a talk called Custom Targeted Data Extraction and Automated Document Validation in Alfresco. And as usual, we will have the Q&A at the end. So I already enabled the Q&A feature into our webinar solution. So please share that. The chat should be okay. Maybe Santiago, you should just type a quick hello or something to see if people are answering, because sometimes the chat is not completely ready. So just let me know, we can see. And so for today's news, of course, end of August, we have this big event in Las Vegas. So if you can attend, I really recommend. It's an amazing time to meet all others, customers and partners from the Highland ecosystem. So it's not just for Alfresco, but also for Nuxeo, for OnBase, for Perceptive, and for all the new product range we are building called CIC. So it's all about cloud and artificial intelligence on top of your repositories and documents. It's very exciting. I'm currently also working with my community management team to add forums and content and stuff on Connect and community, but we will come back to that later. Also, this is very important. I will put the link in the chat, but there is an Alfresco dev track at Community Live 2025 in Las Vegas. I know that Andrel, if you want to meet him, he should be attending. So Andrel is in PTO this week. So I don't have the confirmation, but I know that he worked very hard to prepare that. So he should be attending, but I don't have the confirmation yet. But there is an interesting article wrote by Angel about that. It's featured on connect.highland.com, so it's really easy to find, but you have here an extract, okay? The next step, the next interesting thing is that if you want to meet Highland in your area, we have started to list the upcoming event we create or we attend when it's not a Highland event, but let's say an industry conference or fair trade, something like that, on events.highland.com. So you can find everything. And of course, as usual, you will have the traditional user group events. So you can join the Alfresco user group here. And when we create something, then, I mean, you're welcome to attend and learn stuff and share. I list typically the Tech Talk Live on the Alfresco user group here, and that's exactly what we are using, events.highland.com right now to operate those webinars. A couple of news. So we have Steve Rayner, who shared two projects, very interesting, on GitHub. Again, I'll share the link later in the chat. All about Python, actually. One about the API, but for Python. And another is a kind of integration of an MCP server. Again, it's, V1 by Steve. Maybe at the end, I don't know if Steve is here, usually attend. If we have the time, we can ask him a couple of questions. We have also the Alfresco project management by Vyacheslav. It's not in English. So I don't know, Vyacheslav, if you can translate, that would be awesome, because currently it's in Cyrillic. I don't know, it's a Slavish language, maybe Russian, I don't know. But it would be amazing that it could be translated in English. And two blog posts that you can actually see on Connect, also in the Alfresco section. One about conditionally indexing the data with Elasticsearch by Asirika Costa. So she's one of our expert at Highland. And also an article by Andrel about broken workflows after upgrading Alfresco. So I give some tips and tricks to avoid that and fix that. Very interesting as usual with Andrel. So again, become a speaker for the Tech Talk Live. I took time to upgrade this slide with the new branding. I'm quite proud of what I did. It looks nice, I feel. The pictures come from Unsplash, so no problem with the rights. So it's like Santiago, a good way to show your expertise. And find new customers and partnerships and so on. So don't be shy. Santiago, we say in French, we don't eat speakers. By the way, it's too far away, so I can't. But it's just, yes, don't be shy. It's a bit of work, but you can really, for example, recycle a presentation you did recently and just tweak it for the purpose of the Tech Talk Live. So contact me, contact Andrel. We are really welcoming. And currently, we are looking for speakers for October, November, and December. So you are really welcome. And the next things, and this is new, and I told you that I would come back later in this community presentation. So Santiago will be our first speaker for Tech Talk Live schedule in Spanish. So it's organized by the Spanish-speaking Alfresco community. Of course, it's led by Andrel and others. So I will support that by providing stuff, but I will not speak because I don't speak Spanish at all. So sorry for that. But I will be there to organize and promote stuff when I have more details. Don't miss that. It will be scheduled on events.highland.com too. Okay. So even if it's a website, is in English, you will find all the details when I have them. It's just, I just miss a couple of information. So speak about Alfresco, ADF, APS, integration with artificial intelligence, whatever you want to do. You can show maybe a nice integration or, I don't know, kind of skin or UI you have done. We are very welcoming with that. Just speak Spanish this time. And if you want to do that into another language, let's say, I know, German or Portuguese or whatever, again, contact us and we can really help you to do that, run that, host that, like I'm doing right now with Santiago. So today, welcome Santiago. I will let you present yourself actually about this custom targeted data extraction and automated document validation in Alfresco. So I will stop to share my screen right now.
Thank you so much, Antoine. Thank you so much for the introduction and for your help to make this Tech Talk Lives possible. For us, it's a real pleasure to have the possibility of being here. We have been in the context, myself and the company that I am on the behalf of, we have been on the context of Alfresco for quite a while now, 10 years. And it is a huge honor to have the possibility for us to be here with you because we have attended to a lot of Tech Talk Lives and we have learned a lot from this scenario.
And so it's your time to share.
It's our time to share, and it's an honor because we have to admit as well that some of the ideas have been taken or learned by the interactions that we have had here in the Tech Talk Lives as well. We have gathered ideas from those interactions, and I have to admit as well that Angel is quite of how do I say that, a reference for all of us in the community. And so it's an honor as well to have the possibility to interact with him directly and organize these Tech Talks as well. I shared with him the content that we will be sharing here today with you guys. And we are Appropia. Appropia is a software solution company that is based on Colombia. We are partners of Highland. And here at Appropia, I am the CDO of this company, and I am also a partner of it. So we hope to fulfill what we put as header in this presentation, that is created intelligence from content. We have been seeing that the rise of artificial intelligence is allowing us to have the possibility of transforming the documents and content that we normally just stored and saved there and never look back to it into intelligence that we can use and process and make decision based on the information that we have stored on those documents. So as Antoine said, we are going to be covering a topic that is custom targeted data extraction and automated document validation in Alfresco. We had a use case with a client of ourselves that they contacted us because they needed to gather documentation from their providers periodically. So they had to request that documentation from them manually. You can imagine the amount of manual processes that involves. If you have a lot of providers, here we are talking about a construction company, a big construction company that works and make alliances with a lot of providers so that they can make their projects and can build their constructions. So imagine the burden of having to request all those documents manually by email interactions, by WhatsApp messages interactions, by any transfer tool that you may find useful for you to request the information to those providers, and to have to review that manually, ask them to resend you maybe a document that was sent to yourself for the wrong period of time that was requested, with an error in the content of the document. So you can imagine the amount of messages and interactions that it would involve to you, so that you have the possibility of receiving the information that you really need, and as well to filter out the documents that are not associated with the documents that you need to have on your repository. So the pain points that we found while we were interacting with that customer of ourselves was that, as I mentioned before, they were just storing that documents in their normal file system, and they weren't using the information that was inside of the documents. They were just like fulfilling and marking that the provider have sent the requested document, so that they could have the possibility to comply to a regulatory law that was established there in Mexico. This is a Mexican construction company. So they were missing out a lot by leaving those documents in forgiveness, because they were never using that information of the documents again. So when we started to gather those documentation in a repository as Alfresco, we found that the manual metadata entry of the information of those documents was really prone to errors when you have to fill the information by yourself, and was causing a significant delay on the processing of those documents. Because again, if you have to gather a lot of documents from your providers, validate that they are the ones that you really need, validate that the content is correct, then you have to upload it to your repository, then you have to extract the information by yourself and type it out into your content model. Now, like binding to the context of Alfresco, you have to type out all the properties that belongs to that given content type and that given document type, that will be that will have the possibility of having a lot of errors in that process, and you will start to delay that processing of those documents a lot, and so the approval time will increase a lot. So we would have as well unreliable documentation, and as I mentioned, this construction company needed to comply to a regulatory law that was established in Mexico. So as well, it was opening them to audit risks and potential fines. So we had the client's expectations of that the documents could be approved and processed in less than 1 hour. Of course, that was a big window of time if you have everything automated. We needed a high accuracy on the processing of these documents, and we found as well a lot of limitations in the traditional approach. For example, we found that if you create static rules to process every type of document that you want to gather in your repository, these rules will be really brittle and hard to maintain for complex documents. Or maybe you could create separate processors in a programmatic approach, not leveraging yourself the capacities of artificial intelligence. You would have to create a separate processor to extract and process the documents of every given type. So it requires a distinct configuration per document type, and this will become unmanageable and for an unstructured and documents. It will fail with unstandardized and unstructured documents, because in manual processor and programmatic processors, you could like find the content of a given document with regex, or maybe by the location of the text. But if the documentation is not standardized, you will have a really bad time trying to achieve that goal in a consistent manner. So we asked ourselves, if wouldn't it be great to extract exactly what you want just by describing it. So as we started to interact with large language models and artificial intelligence resources, we found the possibility of using the power of just describing what we need based on the content of a document, so that we could bind the resulting information of that description to a property into our content model. So uh, we wanted a process that will be as simple as what I am going to describe to you at this moment. For example, at the left side of the screen, you are seeing a Mexican ID, and there you have a lot of information that could be useful so that you can validate that and cross validate as well with the record of that provider. For instance, if this ID belongs to a provider that you have hired to have a processing to your into your projects, into your construction projects. So we wanted a process that would be as easy as just describing what we needed. For example, in the number one aspect of that Mexican ID, we can just like target the name of the person that this ID belongs by describing that exactly name of the person this ID belongs. We also can target the third aspect of that Mexican ID by just describing and as well explaining the place where that date is located. So date of birth, it is found in the top right corner of the document, because in the process that we have developed, and we are going to explain that a little bit later on, we when we extract the content of the document, we prioritize keeping the text where they are located. So we do that through OCR processing. That way, it allows us to keep everything where it is, and not just like extracting the text in an unorganized manner. So you have the possibility of as well describing the location of the text that you want to extract. So in this scenario of Mexican IDs, they are standardized, so you have the possibility of just mentioning that the date of birth is going to be located at the top right corner of the document. We also wanted to extract in the Mexican context, they have their voting ID that is different to their normal ID. So at the fifth aspect of that ID, we have the voting ID, or in Spanish, clave electoral, and we have and we can describe it directly as it is. So voting ID for the person, it should be an 18 characters alphanumeric string. We have to remember that the large language models as well have their own set of information and their own training information. So they are familiar with the Mexican context, and they know what should be contained within uh, any given type of documents as well. So that helps a lot when you are describing as well what you want to extract for that specific document that you are uh, manipulating and processing at that time. And in the seventh aspect of this document, we have the actual ID of Mexican people. So here we have the ID known as CURP. That's the way that they refer to their ID in Mexico. So ID known as CURP in Mexican context, it should be an 18 characters alphanumeric string. So we are also delimiting the possibilities so that it won't mismatched the result, or try to attach to the result other parts of the strings that are found into the content of the document. So we are delimiting that both the voting ID and the curve, we are delimiting that to 18 characters alphanumeric string. And while we were doing this, while we were extracting the information from documents, we found that we had a really great chance to validate as well that the documents that was being provided could be validated based on its document type. So, for example, a Mexican ID won't have in its header the name of any other country different than Mexico. And all of the Mexican IDs that we are processing is having in its header Instituto Nacional Electoral Credencial para Votar. That's the text that is repeated in all of the IDs that are used in Mexico for the voting process and to identify the Mexican citizens. So we found that we had a really great opportunity with these standard documents. That's something that is more linked to standard documents, because we had the opportunity to validate creating some like assertions to validate that the document and the content of that document is indeed the type of document that we want to gather. So that's a bonus point on this. We won't just be extracting the properties from the document. We will as well be validating the document so that we don't receive any other ID that we are not expecting, or any other ID of any other country, or maybe a passport instead of the expected ID card that we expect to receive from providers, because that's the requirement that we had from this client. So let's review how this is going to be managed in Alfresco. So the high level solution, or the overview of the solution, is we defined the fields that we want to extract from the content type. So the first step will be to have your content model created with your type there established, with all the properties defined, and that will be the first step of the process. Then we created a mechanism that uses data lists as the source of information of the properties that we want to extract to match with the properties that belongs to the content model. So we are going to see it after we see the high level solution. We are going to see it in Alfresco. After that, we would upload the document. We will identify the document. We will define that that document is, as in the example, is a Mexican ID or an INE. That's the right name in the context of Mexico. We will define that that PDF and that document that we have uploaded is of that given type, and then we can execute the process to extract the metadata and validation of that content type, and we will have a structured output from the Python application that we built to achieve the goal of extracting this information, to match and bind the resulting information to the properties of that content model and that content type that is associated to that given document. So let's review this in Alfresco so that we can understand a little bit more, and we will dive a little bit deeper in what are the resources and the applications that we have involved in all this process. So Just give me 1 second. Here, I have an Alfresco instance running on an EC2 instance in AWS. I will just give you an overview of the applications that are running at this moment. So here we have the normal proxy that is sitting on front of the Alfresco context that comes with the Docker Compose installation method. We have the Alfresco instance, we have our solver for indexation, we have our share application, we have our transformer that we are not currently using for this purpose of what we want to achieve. We have a custom Python application that we will dive a little bit deeper later on the talk, that its name is a resource finder because as we mentioned in the title of the conference, we won't just be extracting metadata from the documents. We will as well validate that documents contrasting with other metadata of other documents or other nodes. So we have that later on in the chat. We have the provider registry. This is a custom application that we created in Angular that allows us to limitate the interactions that these providers have with the information, so that they have the possibility to upload just the information that we request them to upload. That way they won't be like messing around with the repository and uploading the information through a dynamic of like a file system as a normal administrator or a normal Alfresco user will do. A node application, we created a helpful application that is a backend for frontend there, that is sitting in front of Alfresco to allow the interaction with Alfresco without like altering the cross origin. That's not fulfilling any purpose. We have as well, this is the other Python application that is the one that will help us with the data extraction. So I want to explain to you something here that I have in the presentation. I'll just skip a couple of slides, and then we will go back. We have our Alfresco instance here, right? What we will do is that when we execute the metadata extraction process, we will send the document and the definitions of the properties that we want to extract. We will send that document to a Python application that is built by ourselves. And what this application does is not that complex. What it does is it receives the PDF, and it sends the PDF to an OCR processor to extract its text and receive it back in a structured format that allows us, as I mentioned, to refer to the content of that document based on its location and the purpose of the information as well. So we have a lot of possibilities. We are currently using Google Document AI. We have found that that resource for that purpose is really accurate, but we have done a lot of testing as well. For example, with the local instances of Duckling, that is something else that you can use for that purpose, and that way you won't be having to pay for that OCR processor. You have just to install it and uh, configure it and like maintain it. It takes a little bit more time for that OCR processor to respond. It is based on the machine that you have it running on. And then when we extract the content of the document, we send that content with the properties definitions that we will see after we review this to OpenAI, to the O3 mini model, to extract that information from that content. So going back to our Alfresco instance, we have here our share, and we created here in our share instance, we created a data list that allows us to bind property definitions to a given content type, right? So, as I mentioned before, we will be working with Mexican ID. We named that content model ATISA, Identificación INE. That's the content model where we build the type that will help us this is the type. Sorry, this is the type that we build to define the properties that will compound the Mexican identification. So we will bind the extractions to this type. If we execute the metadata extraction process of any given node that is of this type, we have created a mechanism that will collect the properties definitions that are here uh, established in this data list. So we have the typology, that is the content type. We have the name of the property of the content model as well. So we have the INE number, número INE, that is the identification number. We also have the name of the person that the INE belongs to. We have as well the INE number, the identification number. We have as well the date of birth. We have here what I mentioned earlier. We won't be just binding resulting information from the content of the PDF to the properties of the content model. We will as well create an assertion here, and we will validate the document type based on that assertion. So here we won't be binding anything to this property because as you see, it doesn't belong to a content model. It is just a validation property that allows us to, as I mentioned, by an assertion using the large language model, we can identify if the PDF or the document is the expected document type. So in the content, going back to the Mexican ID, we have here at the header of of the ID, Instituto Nacional Electoral. So that's what we established in the validation property. We are saying that the document should have as heading that given text, that specific text. If the document doesn't have that text, the metadata extraction Python application will return to us a false statement. That way, we will know that that document should be rejected and shouldn't be taken as accountable, or we shouldn't trust the information that is within that document. So we have the identification number, the name, we have as well the date of birth, and we have the curve. Those are the same properties that are defined here in the presentation. We have the name of the person this ID belongs, right? And that's exactly the definition that we are going to be using for that extraction process. Name of the person this ID belongs, right? We have as well the date of birth. It is found in the top right corner of the document. And here in the date of birth, we have date of birth. It is found in the top right corner of the document. We have as well the voting ID for the person. It should be an 18 character alphanumeric string. So the voting ID is here. This is the property, and this is the definition that we will use to find that information within that PDF. So voting ID for the person, it should be an 18 characters alphanumeric string. And we also have the last property that we want to extract. It is ID known as curve. In Mexican context, it should be an 18 characters alphanumeric string. So we have it there, and we have it here, the property of the content model, and we have it as well. ID known as curve Mexican in the Mexican context, it should be an 18 characters alphanumeric string. So there we have the definitions, and we can proceed to execute the process as I mentioned. So the first thing that we have to do is that we have to upload a Mexican ID. I will show you the PDF that we'll be uploading. We are going to upload this document. If you can see here, it is a little bit blurry. So we are going to upload it anyway. This is a demo ID. It doesn't belong to a real person. We found that in the website of the government of Mexico. So we are going to upload here the Mexican identification. Just give me 1 second. Upload file. TikTok. There it is. We have there the PDF uploaded, and as always, the PDFs and the documents that we upload to Alfresco are created as content with the content model. But we will change that to the content model definition that we have, that is in identification. So we will define that this PDF should be an INE, that is the ID of the Mexican people. And right now, we don't have any information bound to the PDF. We don't have anything bound to it. But what we will do is that we will execute the extraction of this PDF. We have created a custom action here in the content application that allows us to trigger a web script in Alfresco backend that receives the intention of extracting the information for this given node with its node ref. And with that node ref, we will validate what's the content type of that given node. And with that content type, we will validate here in the data list the properties definitions. And with that, we will build the body of the for the request. So here we can validate the logs of the application. Here are the logs. Just allow me 1 second while I look for the. So here, this is the payload that we are sending to our metadata extraction application. As you can see here, we have the node ID of the node that we are processing. If we validate the node ID, we can validate that. So if I open the PDF, we have 76p at the beginning and ADEC at the end. 76p and ADEC is the node ID that we are processing. This document, as you saw, is of INE type. So we gather the properties definitions and we put them into an array of properties definitions. So we have the property name, that would be the property of the content model. We have as well the description, that is the one that is defined there in the data list, date of birth. It is found in the top right corner. And we have as well a title that will be the same property name, but without the content model prefix. And we have that all the properties that we have defined in the data list, so that we have the possibility of extracting them, right? So here we have as well the curve, we have as well the voting ID, we have for example, have the name of the person this ID belongs, name of the person this ID belongs, and we have as well the validation. So the assertion is document should have as heading that given a specific text. And if that doesn't fulfill that condition, the LLM should return to us that the document is not the expected document. So here we have the application that I mentioned earlier is a custom Python application. So what we do with it is that we receive the PDF, as I mentioned, we extract with the OCR the content, and then we send the properties definitions with the content to the LLM so that it can bind to those properties, the information that is found in the content. And at the end, it just returns to us a normal format that is applicable to the updating process of a node in Alfresco. So it returns to us what it have found. So it returned to us the date of birth. It have returned to us the curve. It have returned to us the voting ID that it have found in the content, and it have also returned to us the name of the person the ID belongs. This can vary. For example, sometimes it returns to us the first name and the last names followed by the first name, and sometimes it returns to us the last name and the first names. That's something that we can limitate as well with the definition. We could just add here in the data list definition in the name of the person this ID belongs, return it, name and last name, so that we can receive it in the expected format. And we receive it back in Alfresco, as you see here, the payload that is returned by the metadata extractor, and we bind the results of those properties to the content model. And if we see here now this is the idea we uploaded. We can explore the properties of that PDF, and we have the possibility of seeing the extracted information. So we can validate that indeed the date of birth of this person is the 5th of July of 1980, that the name of the person is Gomez Velasquez Margarita, as it have returned to us. The curve, that is the ID number for them, is here at the bottom part of it, and is GOVM 800 705 MCLMLRR01. There is it was extracted correctly, and we also have the voting ID GMBLM R800 705 GMBLM R800 705 01M100. So it was extracted correctly, even though that the document is a little bit blurry and that it has all these stamps over it. So it's really accurate, the process of extraction there. And what I want to show you here right now is that the validation, the assertion works as expected. For example, we have another example here. We have a Colombian ID. So for instance, if a provider, in the context of our customer, if a provider miss upload the document that is requested to him, uh, we can validate that based on the assertion. So here is a completely different ID. This will be a Colombian ID, but it doesn't contain in the header of the content what we expect to find. So if we review in the data list, in the validation property that we define that won't be bind to the content model, we see here that we have document should have as heading this given text, that Instituto Nacional Electoral, right? And if we validate the document, the Colombian ID, we'll see that this ID doesn't have that given text on the header. So what we will do is that we will as well, we will say that this is not just a content, but is an INE identification, and we will execute the extraction process for it. So just give me 1 second while I'll reload it, and execute extraction, and we go back to the logs. So let's scroll down to the bottom of it, the bottom of the execution. So again, we receive the request for to extract the information. Let's look to this at the top of the execution. So here we have extract metadata web script. We have starting the execution, right? We have the node ID that was received, and we also identify what's the content type. Constructed query, we identify what is the content type of that node that we want to process. So we have identified that is identificación INE. That's the content type that we have defined. And we look at the data lists with AFTS, that's language, the query language that we are using. We look for the registries that are in the data list definiciones de propiedades or properties definitions, and we look for the definitions that are bound to that content type. And with that, we build the payload that I explained earlier, and we send that information to the data extractor. So we extract data version 2 API call. We are performing an OpenAI health check to validate that we have found funds on that API key, and to avoid misuse in the OCR processor, because that's the most expensive part of the process. Is more expensive, the OCR processor, the OCR processing and the content extractor, than the processing with the large language model of OpenAI. So we send this processing document with Document AI. We send that PDF to Document AI. And we validate the amount of pages. We receive back the content from Document AI, and we send the properties definitions and the content to OpenAI. And as you see here, the data structure have received a false result of that assertion. So invalid document, right? It have tagged or identified that identification a document as not as the one that was expected by the user. So we receive in Alfresco a 400 status response with the body of the document is not valid based on the non-document type. So here we will have the loading information, and we have here that the state of the document, the actual state, the current state is rejected, rechazado in Spanish, rejected, because this document is not the one that we are expecting. And the only thing that we are using to validate that this is not the document that we are expecting is based on its format and its content, and based on the assertion that we established here. So if I remove the assertion and the validation definition, it won't try to validate the content of the document, and it will process it. So that's pretty much what we can do there. We have the possibility of extracting properties, and as well, based on the content, we have the possibility of filtering out the documents that are not the ones that we are expecting. So and everything just by defining a natural language perspective for a natural language model, and leveraging the information that it already has. So that's the custom targeted data extraction, and we will follow this uh, with something that we built on top of that solution. So now that we have the information, and now that we have the possibility of filtering out the documents based on its format, we thought to ourselves, wouldn't it be great to validate this extracted information with the metadata of other documents or nodes? Uh, it is really important to have the accurate information. As I mentioned, uh, we are requesting this information to the provider so that they can upload by themselves the information to our repository, right? But we need to make sure that the documents that they are uploading in our platform are actually the documents that we expect it to be, or that the documents belongs to the people that we expect these documents to belong. So we have a structured repository. That's one of the requirements for this mechanism that we build to have. We need to have a structured repository, and we have to have a structured record of our providers with a defined structure, with a defined a folder structure and content structure, so that we can find the other resources that we want to cross validate with the information of the documents that are being uploaded at any given moment. So we have as well to have pre-validated documents. So we have to have documents that have been already uploaded and have been validated, and that have been enriched with the metadata extraction process. We can build contextual querying that allows us to bring information from other nodes or documents, and as well with natural language definitions, we have the possibility of contrasting the properties definitions, or the properties that we have of a given document, with the properties that we have on any other given node in our repository. So having all these ingredients together, we have the possibility of not just validating the documents based on its content, but as well based on its on to be coherent with the information of the providers in the scenario of the construction company that we exposed to you earlier. So I will show to you how is the structure of our repository. We have a couple of sites here. The one that we will be focusing ourselves on is the providers or proveedores in Spanish. We have a list of providers there registered. And these folders are not just simple folders, but are folders that has its own content type. So our folders are that are fully enriched with information. As you can see, we have a lot of aspects to bind to this folder, and we have a lot of information as well bind to it. But the one that we will be focusing on is uh, having Ana Maria as one of our providers. We can fill this information and have that information verified manually, or we have built a custom as well registration form that allows the providers to register themselves into the platform and to provide this information, and then the administration team have the possibility of validating that. So here we have bound to this folder the ID number known as CURP in the Mexican context to that provider. And inside of Ana Maria, we have her record, and we have different stages in which we will be requesting documents for that provider. The one that we will be focusing on is within the Alta folder. That is the folder that its purpose is to gather all the documentation that the provider has to send to a construction company so that they can be enabled to be hired for for a given project. So as you saw, we will be manipulating the INE identification, that is the Mexican ID. We have that here. We will be like gathering that type of documents inside of this folder, and it has a fixed structure in all of the providers records. So that allows us to define, as I mentioned, contextual queries that helps us find information that is located in any other part of the repository. So here in the INE identification folder, we have as well as this is as well, we have the possibility of request this information periodically. We have dates attached to the folder where we want to receive the document, and we have the possibility of storing the documents here. So having the workflow of the provider, we will see how they provide us this document, and we validate it, contrasting the information of the document against the information that we have of the provider and that is stored in this given folder. So for this mechanism, we created another Python custom application with LangGraph, that is a agentic workflow framework that allows us to uh, uh, configure it to have the possibility of navigating their repository based on natural language definitions. And we created some mechanisms as well inside our repository so that we could define the resources that we want to gather and as well what we want to validate of those resources. So we created recopilador in Spanish that will be a data list that will be like information gatherer, something like that, or resource finder. And we have here as well bound to a content type. We have some definitions that will allows us to bring the information that we expect to contrast with the information that we have of our given document. So when we upload an INE identification ID, we want to bring the information that is at the provider level. And as I mentioned, as we have the record of our providers well structured, where if we define that we want the information that is up the provider level, our agentic workflow will be looking for this folder that belongs to a provider that have uploaded the document, and will bound the result of that information, the properties that are bound to that provider level folder, to this key provider info so we will have that available, and we have as well created another data list that allows us the possibility to validate the information that we have gathered and the information that we have from the document that we just upload, to validate if there may be equals, or if maybe the date is within a range, or maybe if the sum of multiple values is within an expected result, right? And everything is going to be built in a natural language perspective. So we are going to validate, and we are going to bind a cross validation definition to a given content type. We will as well uh, uh, like define the source of information that we want to validate, the target of information that we want to validate. Here we have what we received from the resource finder. So we have the resources, that provider info. That was the key that I told you, that the resulting information of that resource finder was going to be bound, provider info. And we have as well the property of the content model of that folder that we have for the record of that provider. So here, as I showed you, we have a lot of information, and bound to a content type, persona física, or natural person, or normal person. We have bound to it a property that stores curve the curve value, right? So we have that here. This is the property of the content model that is storing that information. And in the natural language definition, what we do is that we tell the natural language model to validate that the curve from the INE, the ID, Mexican ID, is equals to the curve stored in the provider information. So we won't be just validating that that the ID that is in the PDF is actually a Mexican ID, but we will be also validating that based on the extracted information of that ID, that indeed that ID belongs to the provider that is uploading it. So as I mentioned before, we created a custom interface that allows the providers to upload the information that is requested to them. So we will be like accessing that interface so that we can upload that ID to see how this validation works. We will just access this with admin credentials. And you will see that we have the same structure as we have in the content tab, but in a different with a different view. We have a folder fashion structure here, and we have all these providers: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 providers. And if we go to the provider portal, we'll see that we have as well 8 providers, and that we can access the requirements for that provider so that they can upload the requested information. Here we see that they have a requirement, INI identification, that is pending. This provider hasn't uploaded its ID and have the possibility of uploading in a given period of time. So we have that as pending, and we have the possibility of uploading that through this mechanism, allowing the provider to just interact with what is necessary. And we will just be uploading that here. The upload was successful. And if we navigate to that provider folder, we will find that the document was uploaded correctly there. And here we can validate what's the workflow that we are leaving there. So the first thing that we do is that as we are doing this through a custom application that we build for those providers to upload their documents, we don't have to uh, like manually set this document to be of a given document type. That's done automatically by the system, and we build the payload so that the properties can be extracted. We do that again as we did when we did it manually. We bound the properties to the extractions that we do through the OpenAI API, and after that, we receive that extraction, and as well we use the Python application that we built to look for the information of the provider. So he receives the request that is established here in the resource finder, bring the information that is at the provider level, bring the information that is at the provider level. Let me see if we can find that. Resources to find. Tokens. Here we will have that. And what it does is that it chooses a template that we'll use to request the provider information. Give me 1 second while I look for that. Resource to find, provider info. Bring the information that is at the provider level is the definition that we send to our resource finder, our agentic workflow, and this request to the Alfresco repository the information of that given node. So here we have all the properties of that provider, and we in that content we have the curve. Here it is, the curve. And with natural language request, we then execute a request again to the data structure, the validation API. We create a validation API that can contrast a source value to a target value based on a natural language definition, and we receive a result for that execution. So here we have the result in the console, and we will see what it says to us. So as we see here, that ID indeed doesn't belong to a person that is registered in our platform. So we have the source value that is the one that is extracted from the document. And if we review that, we can validate that. We have here the INE that was uploaded, and we have the curve value that was extracted. And it's not the same. It's not the same one as the one that we have stored within the node of that provider. Here we have it. It's a different one. So it shows us that the source value and the target value are not the same. So the validation fails, and it give us the definitions and the result and the verdict of that validation, the reason why the validation failed. So what we wanted was to validate that the curve from the INE ID is equals to the curve stored in the provider information. This is exactly the validation definition that we have here in our data list, and it just performs the validation with natural language. So that's pretty much what we have achieved using all these artificial intelligence resources. As I mentioned earlier, we have this architecture. We have a lot of applications there involved, but mainly what we have is a metadata structure process that uses OpenAPI to interact with large language models, and uses as well document AI to extract the content of PDFs, and also an agentic workflow built with a LangGraph to achieve the goal of finding resources that we want to validate against information that is being uploaded at the moment.
Santiago, we are
Okay.
already at 5 p.m. For a couple of
Okay.
minutes, actually. I let you finish, digging into the logs and so on. But so far, how much content do you have still to present? We're a bit late,
No,
actually.
it's just this one more slide, and then we have these two slides, but that's it. Q&A,
Okay.
and that's it. So like the metrics and the use cases, I think that maybe 5 minutes more, that would be it.
Okay, let's finish your talk, but we will not have the time for the Q&A. But this is recorded, and people will see the entire stuff.
Of course, of course. So the metrics that we have found is that the average approval time went from 1 to 7 days to 10 minutes. The human errors was like taken down from 25% or more to less than 10%, and the cost per page of processing was depending on the headcount, and now is $0.06 for each page that we process. We have some challenges that we had while we were doing this processing. We had the latency that we have when we interact with large language models. So that was something that we had to manage, because these large language models takes a couple while to respond. And we also had to decide if we wanted to have a self-managed OCR as Docklink, or we wanted to pay for a cloud service provider that could like serve us with that service. The use cases that we have found that this solution will be really useful will be like the onboarding processes, gathering information from the client, provider, supplier, and employees, record completeness to validate that the information that I have of a record is complete, regulatory compliance to establish requirements for the providers, maybe as we showed to you in our example. Making requirements to those providers so that you can comply to regulatory law in your country, or just simple document requests to receive what you actually expect to receive. So that would be it. Thank you so much for your attention and for participating in this Tech Talk Live. I know that is a lot of information, but you can also reach to us through our LinkedIn page or our website. If you have any doubts, we will be more than happy to share with you anything else, or to solve any question that you may have in the process of interacting with this kind of solutions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Santiago, because I know it's a lot of work to prepare such a presentation and the demonstration that comes with it. So we are a bit late, like 5-6 minutes late so far. So we don't have that much question. I was looking, the Q&A was not used. I see a couple of people who might have a question left already. Because at 5 p.m. People have other obligations, so we might have missed this opportunity for this time. But so far, that was really interesting to see, I would say, a kind of real life case, because with the Tech Talk Live, we've done a lot of demonstration about artificial intelligence and LLM in the last months. In the last year, actually. And sometimes, it's a bit too theoretical, I would say. Here, it's really practical. So thank you very much. And
you're welcome, Antoine. Thank
you will do the exact same talk in Spanish in August, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so very good. Maybe you will be, it's your, native language, so maybe you will be also more, less stressed or more.
Yes, of course. It will be way easier. It will be way easier doing it in Spanish.
Yeah. But thank you, because I really appreciate the good work you did. It's an interesting demonstration. I see that people say thank you in the chat, so and start to leave, by the way. So next Tech Talk Live will be, as I said, in English, will be in September. I already have good insights about the speaker. The programmation will come end of August, beginning of September, as usual. And stay tuned on events.highland.com for the first Tech Talk Live in Spanish. I'm just waiting for Angel to come back so we can schedule that with Santiago as the first speaker. And prepare all the content and stuff like that to promote that. So stay tuned. It will be really scheduled before the end of July. Santiago, see you soon, of course.
Of course. Thank you so much, Antoine.
You're welcome. And if you need to have, I would say, a call with Angel and I next week to prepare, we will be in Westlake, I think, next week. So maybe we'll be quite busy, but in 10 days, possible to schedule something. So let's do that.
Of course. Let's do it. Thank you so much.
See you guys. Bye-bye.